Hepar Sulphuris from Allen's keynotes. Sulfurate of lime. For torpid lymphatic constitutions, persons with light hair and complexion, slow to act, muscles soft and flabby. The slightest injury causes suppression. Diseases where the system has been injured by the abuse of mercury. In diseases where suppuration seems inevitable, Hepar may open the abscess and hasten the cure. Oversensitive physically and mentally, the slightest cause irritates him. Quick, hasty speech and hasty drinking. Patient is peevish, angry at the least trifle, hypochondriacal, unreasonably anxious. Extremely sensitive to cold air, imagines he can feel the air if a door is opened in the next room, must be wrapped up to the face even in hot weather. Cannot bear to be uncovered. Takes cold from slightest exposure to fresh air. Urine, flow impeded, voided slowly, without force, drops vertically, is obliged to wait a while before it passes. Bladder weak, is unable to finish, seems as if some urine always remains. Cough, when any part of the body is uncovered. Croupy, choking, strangling from exposure to dry west wind, the land wind. Asthma, breathing, anxious, wheezing, rattling, short deep breathing, threatens suffocation, must bend head back and sit up after suppressed eruption. Croup, after exposure to dry cold wind, deep, rough, barking cough with hoarseness and rattling of mucus, aggravation, cold air, cold drinks before midnight or toward morning. Sensation of a splinter, fish bone or plug in the throat, quinsy, when suppuration threatens, chronic hypertrophy with hardness of hearing. The skin is very sensitive to touch, cannot bear even cloths to touch affected parts. Touch but can bear hard pressure. Lachesis, sensitive to slightest touch but can bear hard pressure. Skin affections, extremely sensitive to touch, the pain often causing fainting. Ulcers, herpes, surrounded by little pimples or pustules and sprayed by coalescing. Middle of lower lip cracked. Eyeballs, sore to touch, pain as if they would be pulled back into head. Diarrhea of children with sour smell, clay-colored stool. Sweats profusely day and night without relief, perspiration sour, offensive easily on every mental or physical exertion. Relations complementary to calendula in injuries of soft parts. Hepar antidotes, bad effects of mercury and other metals, iodine, iodide of potash, cod liver oil, renders patient less susceptible to atmospheric changes and cold air. Compare the psoriatic skin affections of sulfur are dry, itching, aggravation by scratching and not sensitive to touch, while in Hepar the skin is unhealthy, suppurating, moist and extremely sensitive to touch. Aggravation, lying on painful side, cold air, uncovering, eating or drinking cold things, touching affected parts, abuse of mercury. Amelioration, warmth in general, wrapping up warmly, especially the head, in damp, wet weather. Hepar Sulphuris, Calcareum, Hahnemann's calcium sulfide, Boric Materia Medica. Suits specially scrofulous and lymphatic constitutions who are inclined to have eruptions and glandular swellings, unhealthy skin, blondes with sluggish character and weak muscles, great sensitiveness to all impressions, sweating patient pulling blanket around him. Locally, it has special affinity to the respiratory mucous membrane, producing crupus catarrhal inflammations, profuse secretion, also easy perspiration. After abuse of mercury, infected sinus with pus forming, The tendency to suppuration is most marked and has been a strong guiding symptom in practice. The lesions spread by the formation of small papules around the side of the old lesion. Chilliness, hypersensitiveness, splinter-like pains, craving for sour and strong things are very characteristic. Feeling as if wind were blowing on some part. The side of the body on which he lies at night becomes gradually insufferably painful. He must turn. Pellagra. Syphilis after antispecific gross modification. Mind. Anguish in the evening and night with thoughts of suicide. The slightest cause irritates him. Dejected and sad. Ferocious, hasty speech. Head. Vertigo and headache when shaking the head or riding. Boring pain in the right temple and in root of nose every morning. Scalp sensitive and sore. Humid scalp, head itching and burning. Cold sweat on head. Eyes, ulcers on cornea, iritis with pus in anterior chamber, purulent conjunctivitis with marked chemosis, profuse discharge, great sensitiveness to touch and air. Eyes and lids red and inflamed, pain in the eyes as if pulled back into the head, boring pain in upper bones of the orbits, eyeballs sore to touch. Objects appear red and too large, vision obscured by reading, field reduced 1/2, bright circles before eyes, hypopyon. Ears, scurfs on and behind the ears, discharge of fetid pus from the ears, whizzing and throbbing in ears with hardness of hearing, deafness after scarlet fever, pustules in auditory canal and auricle, mastoiditis. Nose, sore, ulcerated, soreness of nostrils with catarrhal troubles, sneezes every time he goes into a cold, dry wind with running from nose, later, thick, offensive discharge, stopped up every time he goes out into cold air, smell like old cheese, hay fever. Face, yellowish complexion, middle of lower lip cracked, vesicular erysipelas with pricking in parts, neuralgia of right side, extending in streak into temple, ear, ally and lip. Pains in bones of face, especially when being touched, ulcers in corners of mouth, shooting in jaw on opening mouth. Mouth, dialism, gums and mouth painful to touch and bleed readily. Throat, when swallowing, sensation as if a plug and of a splinter in throat. Quinsy, with impending suppuration, stitches in throat extending to the ear when swallowing. Hawking up of mucus. Stomach, longing for acids, wine and strong tasting food. Aversion to fat food, frequent irritations without taste or smell, distension of stomach, compelling one to loosen the clothing, burning in stomach, heaviness and pressure in stomach after a slight meal. Abdomen, stitching in region of liver when walking, coughing, breathing or touching it. Hepatitis, hepatic abscess, abdomen distended, tense, chronic abdominal affections. Stool, clay colored and soft, sour, white, undigested, fetid, loss of power to expel even a soft stool. Urine, voided slowly without force, drops vertically, bladder weak. Seems as if some always remained. Greasy pellicle on urine, bladder difficulties of old men. Male, herpes, sensitive, bleed easily, ulcers externally on prepuce similar to chancre. Excitement and emission without amorous fancies, itching of glands, frenum and scrotum. Suppurating inguinal glands, fig warts of offensive odor, humid soreness on genitals and between scrotum and thigh. Obstinate gonorrhea, does not get well. Female, discharge of blood from uterus, itching of pudenda and nipples, worse during menses, menses late and scanty, Abscesses of labia with great sensitiveness, extremely offensive leukorrhea, smells like old cheese, profuse perspiration at the climacteric. Respiratory losses voice and coughs when exposed to dry cold wind, hoarseness with loss of voice, cough troublesome when walking, dry hoarse cough, cough excited whenever any part of the body gets cold or uncovered or from eating anything cold, croup with loose rattling cough, worse in morning, choking cough, rattling croaking cough, suffocative attacks, has to rise up and bend head backwards, anxious, wheezing, moist breathing, asthma worse in dry cold air, better in damp, palpitation of heart. Extremities, finger joints swollen, tendency to easy dislocation, nail of great toe painful on slight pressure. Skin abscesses, suppurating glands are very sensitive. Papules prone to suppurate and extend. Acne in youth, suppurate with prickly pain, easily bleed. Angioneurotic edema, unhealthy skin, every little injury suppurates, chapped skin with deep cracks on hands and feet. Ulcers with bloody suppuration smelling like old cheese. Ulcers very sensitive to contact, burning, stinging, easily bleeding. Sweats day and night without relief. Cold sores very sensitive, cannot bear to be uncovered, wants to be wrapped up warmly. Sticking or picking in afflicted parts. Putrid ulcers surrounded by little pimples, great sensitiveness to slightest touch, chronic and recurring urticaria. Smallpox, herpes circinatus, constant offensive exhalation from the body. Fever, chilly in open air or from slightest draught. Dry heat at night, profuse sweat, sour, sticky, offensive. Modalities, worse from dry cold winds, cool air, slightest draught from mercury, touch, lying on painful side, better in damp weather from wrapping head up, from warmth, after eating. Relationship, antidotes, belladonna, chamomilla, silicea. Compare aconite, spongia, staphysagria, silica, sulfur, calcarea sulf, myristica. Hepar, antidotes, bad effects from mercury, iodine, potash, cod liver oil, removes the weakening effects of ether. Dose, first to 200. The higher potencies may abort suppuration, the lower promote it. If it is necessary to hasten it, give 2x.